The storm had been relentless through the night. Rain lashed against the tall windows of the old hospital, a building that had long been forgotten by the world. Its stone walls groaned with the weight of centuries, and shadows stretched along the corridors like dark fingers. Lightning struck in sudden bursts, illuminating the faint outlines of statues that seemed almost alive in the flickering candlelight. Avery woke slowly, their head heavy, body aching as if they had run a race they could not remember. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic old wood and something sweet they could not name. Their eyes opened to dim golden light spilling from a small lamp on a nearby table. The room was small, quiet, and strangely warm compared to the storm outside. For a moment, Avery could not move. The blankets around them were soft, heavy, and smelled faintly of lavender. Then a sound, a soft giggle, made their heart jump. A figure appeared at the edge of the room. She moved with grace, almost gliding rather than walking. Her hair was dark, flowing like liquid silk over her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp, yet soft at the edges, and they seemed to pierce through the shadows, noticing everything. "You're awake," she said, her voice like wind through autumn leaves, soft, playful, yet carrying a strange authority. Avery tried to speak, but found their throat dry. Their lips trembled as they whispered, "Where am I?" Memories were hazy, a blur of rain, fear, and running through a dark forest. Somehow, somewhere, they had ended up in this strange place, and somehow, during all that chaos, they had held her hand. I don't remember," Avery said, their voice weak. "That's all right," Selene said, kneeling by the bedside. She reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from Avery's forehead. Her touch was light, gentle, and impossible to ignore. "Some things you remember only when the world is quiet. Some things happen when you are not looking." Are you a nurse?" Avery asked. "Yes," she replied simply, though the word felt too ordinary for her. "I am a nurse and more, perhaps, but for now I am here for you." And then the moment they had run, they had tripped, fallen, and somehow Selene had been there. I think I was lost," Avery said quietly, their voice barely above the sound of the rain. "And yet you found me," Selene whispered, her eyes glinting with something Avery couldn't name, affection, sadness, perhaps a warning. The room felt smaller now, intimate and alive, as if the storm outside had pushed the world inwards. Avery tried to rise, but a dull pain shot through their wrist. They looked down and froze. A small mark, like a tiny bruise, was etched into their skin, strange, unnatural, and almost glowing faintly in the dim light. Selene noticed immediately. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide for a fraction of a second. This is not supposed to happen," she said, voice trembling slightly, though her face quickly regained calm. Avery's pulse quickened. What is it?" Something about her tone made their stomach twist with unease and curiosity. "A warning? Of what?" "You have stumbled into something older than the mountains, deeper than the rivers, and darker than the night itself." Avery felt drawn to her in ways they could not explain, something magnetic, something dangerous, something impossible to resist. "I don't understand," Avery admitted. "Why did I end up here? Why did I hold your hand?" "Sometimes we reach for each other without knowing why. You need strength for what is coming." And yet every so often her fingers would twitch as though remembering the hand she had held. Avery felt a strange warmth at their own wrist, the mark glowing faintly beneath the skin, as if alive. Time passed, though Avery could not say how long. The storm raged outside, wind and rain making the windows shake. Inside, it was quiet except for the occasional creak of the old building. Avery's thoughts drifted like leaves on water. Who was this woman? Why did they feel so connected? And what did the mark on their wrist mean? Finally, Selene spoke again, her voice barely audible over the wind. "You are not alone, Avery. Whatever comes, you will not face it empty-handed." Somehow her words, her presence, the faint touch of her gaze, it was like being caught in a dream, one that was both beautiful and terrifying. They wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but their body was too weak, too tired, too enthralled. The storm began to ease, rain softening to a steady drizzle. Lightning became rare flashes, illuminating the room in gentle bursts. Outside, the world seemed to be holding its breath, waiting. Avery felt sleep pull at them again. Before drifting away, they looked at Selene one last time. She was still there, watching, a faint smile on her lips, her hair catching the dim light like threads of night itself. "Sleep now," she whispered. "The night is long, but it will pass. And perhaps, when you wake, you will remember more than you think." And somewhere in the quiet of the room, the faint glow of the mark on Avery's wrist pulsed softly, like a heartbeat waiting, watching, promising that the story had only just begun. Outside, the wind whispered secrets through the trees, carrying a warning Avery did not yet understand. And Selene simply smiled, her eyes glimmering with something timeless and unknowable. The storm would end. The sun would rise, but nothing would ever be the same. Avery awoke to the soft light of morning filtering through the tall windows of the old hospital. The storm had passed, leaving the air fresh and clean, but a sense of unease lingered in the quiet. The mark on their wrist glowed faintly, as if remembering something hidden deep within. Selene was already there, seated in the corner, her dark hair falling over her shoulders like midnight waves. She looked up at Avery with a calm expression, though her eyes betrayed a hint of worry. "You're awake," she said, her voice smooth, like silk brushing against skin. "Good, we need to talk." "That mark, what is it?" "A curse." "What does that mean?" "The curse, it has started to recognize you. And it is dangerous." Everything about Selene was strange, yet somehow comforting. They had no memory of her before last night, yet she felt familiar, like a shadow of a dream they had once had. "What do I do?" Avery asked quietly. Selene's gaze softened. "For now, you must rest. The mark will fade if you remain calm and do not resist the bond. But later, we must face the source of the curse, the power that rules me and all who are like me. It is not merciful, it is not forgiving, and it does not hesitate. The world we live in is not kind to those who stumble into its shadows." At one point, Avery could no longer hold back. "Selene, tell me, why do you live like this, alone in the shadows, bound by a curse?" "But even in this darkness, I have learned to survive, to help where I can, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even if it is fleeting, it is enough." It was larger than it appeared, with hidden corridors, ancient libraries, and rooms filled with strange artifacts. Some seemed harmless, others whispered of dangers Avery could not yet understand. "This place is old," Avery said, touching the edge of a table carved from dark wood. "Older than anything I've seen. And it has held many secrets. Some are safe, some are dangerous, and some are necessary for survival. The kind that can change everything, if you are brave enough to seek them." They reached a room deep in the hospital, filled with old books, vials, and strange objects. Selene opened a large tome, its pages yellowed and delicate. "This book holds the history of the curse," she said. "It tells of those who came before, of choices made, and of powers that cannot be denied. And can the curse be broken?" Yet the pull towards Selene, the desire to understand her, to be close to her, it was irresistible. Hours passed. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the hospital. The light was dim, golden, and soft, painting Selene's face in warmth and mystery. Avery felt the bond between them grow stronger, each shared glance and gentle touch weaving an invisible thread that connected their hearts and souls. But danger was never far away. Avery heard a noise, a soft, deliberate knock on the heavy wooden door. Selene's expression darkened instantly. "They know," she whispered, her voice tight. "The ones who hunt me, they know you are here. You must leave, or I must protect you in ways that may frighten you." "You must trust me," she whispered. "Sometimes staying means danger, sometimes leaving means hope, but the world outside, the world that hunts me, it does not forgive." Selene reached out, finally letting her hand rest over theirs. The warmth was immediate, a comforting presence in the darkening room. Avery felt courage and fear mix, heart pounding with longing and uncertainty. "Tomorrow," Selene said, her voice soft, almost a whisper, "I will show you the truth. You will see the curse for what it really is, and you will choose. Choose whether to face it or turn away." The bond between them was growing, unspoken but undeniable. The warmth of Selene's hand lingered, even after she had moved to the corner chair, watching over them. And deep inside, the mark on their wrist pulsed with quiet power, a reminder that their story was no longer ordinary. A question echoed in the silence. What would they do when the true nature of the curse was revealed? And somewhere in the shadows, Selene's eyes glimmered with both worry and hope, knowing that the night ahead would test them both in ways neither could yet imagine. The night was long. The storm had passed, but the real challenge was only beginning. The first light of dawn seeped through the tall, arched windows of the old hospital. Mist lingered over the ground outside, curling around the edges of the ancient stone walls like ghostly fingers. Avery awoke slowly, their mind heavy with dreams they could not fully remember. Images of shadowed forests, distant whispers, and a hand that reached for them in the dark lingered in their mind. And the mark on their wrist pulsed faintly, a quiet heartbeat of warning and connection. Selene was already awake, sitting by the window, her eyes reflecting the gray light of morning. Her dark hair fell like a veil over her shoulders, catching the faint glow of the rising sun. She glanced at Avery and gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Morning," she said softly, her voice a soothing melody in the quiet room. "Sleep came easy, I hope." I think so, but the dreams, they felt real, like I was somewhere I shouldn't be. I don't want to be in danger, Selene. And now you." The touch was light but warm, almost electric. Avery felt a shiver run through their body, the mark on their wrist pulsing in response. "You are brave," Selene whispered. "And perhaps more than brave, you are curious, fearless, and yet you do not know what you have stepped into." "I want to understand." The walls were lined with books, jars filled with strange herbs, and objects that seemed to hum with energy. Some of the items glowed faintly, while others cast shadows that moved unnaturally. Avery felt a thrill of curiosity mixed with unease. "This place, it's incredible," Avery said, touching the edge of a table carved from dark wood. "It feels alive." "What's in there?" "You may not recognize the world as you know it." In the center of the room was a large table, covered in maps, symbols, and scrolls. Selene opened one of the oldest books, its pages yellowed and fragile. "This tells the story of the curse," she said. "Long ago I was bound by a choice I made. I could have walked away, but my heart could not. The curse claimed me, linking my life to forces I cannot fully control. And now it has noticed you. Then the bond will consume us both. It is not forgiving and it does not rest. But if we succeed, if we are clever, brave, and united, we may find freedom." Selene showed Avery ancient symbols, told stories of creatures that lurked in the shadows, and explained the rules of the world beyond the hospital walls. Each lesson was carefully measured, a mixture of warning and guidance. Avery absorbed it all, feeling their courage grow alongside the bond that pulsed between them. As the sun began to set, Selene led Avery outside. The forest beyond the hospital stretched dark and silent, mist curling among the twisted trees. Shadows moved with unnatural grace, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient magic. "This is where the curse is strongest," Selene said, her voice low. "The forest knows me, and it will not let me go easily. But you must see it for yourself." The trees seemed alive, their branches stretching like arms to block their path. Shadows shifted at the edge of their vision, but whenever Avery turned, nothing was there. Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead, a tall, dark silhouette with eyes that glimmered like embers. Avery froze. Selene stepped forward, placing a hand on their shoulder. "They are here," she whispered. "The ones who hunt me, they know you are with me now." "You should not have come," the figure said, voice sharp as broken glass. "She belongs to the curse, and now you are bound to it. You will regret this intrusion. Bravery will not save you. Only the curse decides fate." Whatever came, they would face it, side by side. The figure stepped back, dissolving into the mist as quickly as it had appeared. The forest was silent once more, the shadows retreating slightly as if waiting. Avery looked at Selene, their chest heaving. "Is it over?" "And it will not rest." Shadows moved with quiet menace, whispering secrets that only Selene could hear. But Avery knew, as long as they were beside her, they would not face the darkness alone. And deep inside, the mark on Avery's wrist glowed steadily, a heartbeat of promise and warning. Whatever the curse held, whatever dangers lay ahead, they would meet it together, bound by trust, by courage, and by the forbidden bond that connected them. The journey was far from over. The forest watched, the night waited, and the shadows whispered. But Avery and Selene, they would not turn away. The forest was quiet, but the silence was heavy. Mist clung to the ground like a living thing, curling around the gnarled roots of ancient trees. Avery and Selene moved carefully, their hands brushing sometimes, the bond between them pulsing faintly through Avery's wrist. Every shadow seemed to watch them, every gust of wind carried whispers of warning. "This is it," Selene whispered, her voice steady but tight with tension. "The source of the curse waits ahead. This is where it begins and ends. Then we face it together." "This is the core," Selene said, her voice low. "The curse, the force that has bound me for centuries. It tests those who challenge it, those who dare to touch it. If we fail, it will claim us both." They had come too far to turn back. "What do we do?" Avery asked, their voice steady despite the trembling inside. Selene took a deep breath, placing her hand over Avery's. The warmth spread through their body, calming their fear and sharpening their focus. We confront it, not with anger, not with force, but with trust, with courage. With the bond we share. You dare to challenge me? The voice intoned. You are nothing, you are fragile, you will fail. Seleni's chant grew stronger, her dark eyes blazing with power and determination. The bond between them pulsed like a living heartbeat, the mark on Avery's wrist glowing brightly, spreading warmth and courage through their veins. The shadows lashed out, testing their resolve, forming visions of loss and despair. Avery saw themselves alone, separated from Selene, the curse victorious. Their heart ached at the thought, but they forced themselves to focus, drawing strength from Selene's presence. Do not fear, Selene whispered. Do not doubt. Hold on to me, hold on to us. Their bond with Selene became a shield, a light that pushed back the darkness. The voice of the curse roared, shaking the clearing. You cannot break me, you cannot defy me. The shadows recoiled, screeching, twisting into chaotic forms. Avery felt a rush of energy surge through them, warmth spreading from the mark into every part of their body. They realized then that the bond was not just a link, it was power, a connection that could shape reality itself. Selene reached the pedestal first, placing her hand on the glowing runes. Avery followed, their hand pressed over hers. The energy surged, blinding light filling the clearing. Shadows screamed and twisted, but the bond between them held firm, steady, unbreakable. You are bound by fear, Avery said, their voice strong. But we are bound by trust, by courage, by love. And that is stronger than anything you are. The mist curled around their feet, the air still and calm. Avery looked at Selene, breathless, heart racing. She smiled at them, a soft, genuine smile, free of the centuries of burden she had carried. It is done, Selene whispered, her voice trembling with relief. The curse, it is broken. We are free. Free, really? Say nothing, just feel. And remember, we have survived together. Avery felt the bond between them pulse gently, a quiet heartbeat of connection and understanding. It was no longer dangerous, no longer a mark of fear, but a symbol of what they had overcome together. Selene stepped closer, their hands intertwined. You have changed me, she whispered. You brought hope where there was none, light where there was only shadow. And now we can face the world together. The journey had been long, dangerous, and filled with fear, but they had endured. They had faced the curse, faced the shadows, faced themselves, and come through stronger. Selene leaned slightly, brushing her lips against Avery's forehead in a soft, tender gesture. All nights are ours now, she whispered, her voice carrying the promise of many tomorrows. And whatever comes, we will face it together. And deep inside, the bond on Avery's wrist pulsed once more, not with warning, but with life. It was a heartbeat of trust, courage, and love, a reminder that whatever darkness lay ahead, they would not face it alone. They stood there, hand in hand, two souls united by fate, courage, and a bond that had been forged in darkness and refined in light. The curse was broken, the shadows had passed, and the world awaited them, full of possibilities, mysteries, and the promise of a future together. The storm had ended. The night was over. But the story, their story, had only just begun.